Construction of the new nuclear icebreaker Stalingrad has begun in Russia. And this is directly related to the conflict that has erupted between India and Pakistan. Why did Mishustin order the construction of even more nuclear-powered ships? And why did Trump set the goal to catch up with Russia at any cost and as soon as possible? We'll talk about this as well as about the new hero of the week right after a brief summary of positive news. New batches of T-90M and T-72B, 3M tanks as well as BMB, 3 with additional protection and Dapisha robotic systems, have been delivered to the troops. At the Zelenodolsk plant, 2 anti-sabotage boats of Project 21,980 Grachanok were laid down, and at the Zvezda shipbuilding complex, 2 new bulk carriers. In Irkutsk, production of equipment for the mining and processing industry has been launched in Perm Krai, production of components for food industry conveyors, and in Moscow, production by the Kalashnikov concern. In the Moscow region, a fiber optic and communication cable plant has been opened in Cheboksary, the second phase of an electrical equipment plant in Chechnya, a full-cycle production complex for manufacturing fittings. In Voronezh region, a turkey breeding and reproduction facility, and in Omsk region, a dairy complex. At the Baltic shipyard on Wednesday, metal cutting began for the new nuclear icebreaker Stalingrad. And in the northwest of the Indian subcontinent, the Indian Army launched Operation Sindoor, bombing targets in Pakistan. At first glance, these events seem unrelated, but if you dig a little deeper, everything becomes much more interesting. Let's start with the conflict between India and Pakistan, longtime adversaries. They have fought each other 3 times already, the last time being in 1999. And it's all because of Kashmir, a region they haven't been able to divide between themselves for 78 years. They can't divide it because the British didn't draw the borders of their colony very wisely, creating the conditions for an eternal conflict. To be more precise, it was actually quite clever from the British point of view, as they knew how to ignite wars and profit from the chaos. That's why, 78 years later, the dispute continues with no visible prospects for a resolution that would satisfy everyone. And the worst part is that both sides possess nuclear weapons and sizable armies. So things could potentially flare up here in a very serious way, especially since neighboring China also controls its own part of Kashmir and could be drawn into the war. This isn't just a regional problem, it's a global one. After all, key trade routes would be affected. The ports of Mumbai, Mundra, and Chennai are crucial hubs for container shipping between Asia, Europe, and Africa. The route from the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean passes through the Arabian Sea, transporting 30% of the world's oil. Military actions could block the Strait of Hormuz, or create high-risk zones which would lead to rising oil prices, energy supply disruptions, and put China and other Asian countries that depend on supplies from Arab countries in a critical situation. A full-scale nuclear conflict is not necessary for such a scenario to unfold. In previous Indo-Pakistani wars, approaches to ports were already mined, naval blockades were declared, and civilian merchant ships were attacked. And there's no need to look to the past for examples. Right nearby, the Houthis continue to control shipping in the Red Sea using their own specific methods. By the way, what's going on with them? The other day, Trump stated that America forced the Houthis to surrender with missile strikes, and they promised not to interfere with shipping anymore and not to attack American ships. Indeed, a truce was reached through the mediation of Oman. However, the Houthis themselves presented it as their own victory and claimed that the rebels managed to bring the United States to its knees. And at the same time, they did not confirm that they would stop attacking ships. So it's quite likely that this truce, like many others, will turn out to be fragile and short-lived. And that's why the problem is already visible to the naked eye. If it flares up in two places at once, in the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, then international trade will have a hard time. It's worth remembering that the container ship Eva Given, which blocked the Suez Canal for 7 days in 2021, cost the global economy more than $60 billion. And now we're coming back to Russia, which, as you know, has long and diligently been developing its alternative, the Northern Sea route. There are no pirates, no rebels, no disputed borders on it, only endless icy fields and icebreakers. Without them, despite the gradually warming Arctic, it will still be impossible to do without for a very long time. The nuclear-powered ship laid down on Wednesday at the Baltic shipyard named Stalingrad will be the 7th vessel of Project 2220A. Recently, Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin confirmed that Russia will build even more of these giants in the near future. But why so many, if we are already the leaders in the icebreaker fleet? November 6, 2024, Dmitry Peskov told the press that the nuclear icebreaker Chukotka, launched in St. Petersburg, is more important for Russia than Trump's victory in the elections. And 6 months later, Trump himself stated that Russia has 40 icebreakers, while we have only one. This entire field is becoming extremely important for many reasons, and he promised to build 48 icebreakers for America. But no one believed him again because he had already said this back in 2019 when he launched the construction program. Not only was it not completed, but it didn't even really get started. Because, as it turned out, Americans have forgotten how to design icebreakers, work with special grades of steel, and they don't have the personnel or resources for this. Theoretically, the Canadians and Finns could help them, but for now, that's also in doubt. Russia really does have the most powerful fleet, and no one else in the world has nuclear icebreakers. By 2030, their number will reach 11 ships, including Russia's new generation icebreakers. And no one will even be able to come close to us in this regard. But even this is not enough to implement the plans to increase the capacity of the Northern Sea route. Last year, in 2024, we broke another record and transported 38 million tons of cargo along it. This year, it will be more than 40, but the target is set at 100 million tons. Some people think the target is too high. However, current events clearly show that geopolitics can intervene in the situation, so the route through the north will become the most optimal. And in order for us to be ready for a sharp increase in cargo traffic, we need to start building icebreakers now, construct coastal infrastructure, train personnel, and develop satellite navigation. That's exactly what we're doing, persistently overcoming all obstacles along the way. We will continue to keep you updated on events. In the meantime, we recommend watching a new informative video on the private channel via the link in the description. If last time we talked about dual-use developments, this episode is dedicated to analyzing the key mistakes in the perception of Russian authorities. This is a fundamental analysis that will allow many to look at what is happening in the country and the world from a different perspective. There is a chasm between us, ordinary mortals, and the authorities. They see our lives through and through, while we only see myths about them. Let's analyze 10 fatal mistakes in understanding power. Why are you wrong even when you think you're right? One wants nuclear aircraft carriers, another wants free gasoline, and a third demands socialism.